Welcome to Your Pathway to the Emirates, our new podcast channel. Here we will explore exciting real estate opportunities across Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and other Emirates in the UAE. Beyond property, we'll also delve into important topics to support anyone considering a move to the UAE, covering schools, tax, visas, company setup, relocation, and lifestyle. Our goal is to provide a comprehensive, one-stop guide that helps you navigate every step of relocation or investment in this dynamic region. Stay tuned for insights that will empower your journey. So let's get started. So welcome to our podcast, and we have Jay from GEMS Education.
Thanks very much, Alpesh. My name is Jay Varkey. I'm the Deputy CEO of GEMS Education. I've grown up in the Middle East for a big part of my life, but I also was educated in the UK ever since I was 10 in boarding school. I've spent a lot of my time both between Dubai and London. I was actually in London for the last 10 years, and I recently moved back to Dubai about a year and a half ago to work with the family business. I have 4 kids, 3 boys, 1 girl. I'm a very passionate golfer. And that keeps me pretty busy at the moment.
So golf is great in Dubai. There's so many golf courses there. I've seen them. I don't play golf myself, but my friends are semi-professionals and they play a lot. So I know it's a great sport to get into. So I'm sure you're having fun there with all the golf courses.
No, of course, very lucky. We're a little bit spoiled here.
And so you're educated in the UK and the US. So what drew you back into Dubai, into the family business?
Yeah, so I've having been an international student for a big part of my life, boarding in the UK, then went to US also for 1 year at USC, but then found that it wasn't for me. Went back to Edinburgh University to complete my undergrad, and more recently, about 10 years ago, I did my executive MBA at London Business School and Columbia. So I've been very lucky and grateful for the opportunity I've had to be able to learn from different aspects of education from different parts of the world. But about a year and a half ago, ever since after COVID, there was an inclination for me to come back into the business, and we did quite a substantial transaction in July 2024, which allowed me to come back into the family business and work alongside my father, my brother, and to really, be part of the growth cycle of GEMS and what this region holds for it when it comes to growing our community of schools in the region and developing new kind of initiatives that surround education.
Right. Okay. So in terms of what you've learned from the US and UK, what values do you sort of have in terms of the UK and the US that you want to sort of you feel strongly about and preserving in today's schools?
That's a great question. I think one aspect that does resonate is kind of the collegiality that is so prevalent in these kind of schools, both especially in the West, and the aspect of that critical thinking that is created within this ecosystem. So when I was doing my executive MBA, I thought it was fascinating to be able to learn from so many different kind of companies, case studies, people, and so on and so forth. That I think led me to learn a different part of myself as well. And I think those are kind of the aspects that we would love to deploy into our own schools. So being able to think not just vertically, but also think laterally. I think that's a very powerful aspect for kids to really grasp hold of as they go through education. So I think it is more than just results is one aspect of it, 100%, and delivering, being specialized in, let's say, a certain course or whatever else it may be. But I think it's kind of those skills, those perspectives that comes from other businesses or other ecosystems that you can bring into your own, and being able to navigate through that, I think, can be really powerful and for any child within our ecosystem.
So when parents ask why a British education, what do you tell them beyond the exam results then?
I think the British education is very unique from that perspective. I think obviously exam results are paramount, but the aspect of UK is big on debating, right? And also the UK curriculum was probably kind of underpinned. I think 80% of the world's curriculum, historically during the empire and so on. So there is some aspects of the British curriculum, the rigor that is quite unique, but also the perspective of critical thinking that it does establish within older generations, and that whole debating thesis and that that thought process, I think is very, very powerful. And I think that is quite an interesting perspective compared to other curriculums.
So, how do GEM's premium UK school balance confidence, character, and independence?
So I think our British brands such as Wellington, the Wellington brand, Jumeirah College, Jumeirah Primary School, and that whole brand ecosystem has delivered quality results for many, many years. But outside of that, it's actually the kind of the holistic aspect that we wrap around it. So one, our job is to deliver great quality curriculum to our parents and also make sure that their children get the best results possible so that they can go to university. But outside of that, it's all the extensions around curriculum that we add to it, whether it be community service, interacting with multiple cultures, being part of the family ecosystem, family communities that are so important this day and age, wellness, from a perspective of personal well-being for children, teaching them about media literacy, being safe on social media. All those aspects really kind of encompass a child nowadays. It is not just about results, and that is exactly what our British premium schools, as well as not just that, all our other schools do it, but at that level specifically, especially delivering the British curriculum, these extensions to the core British curriculum that we've been allowed to deliver with the support of our teachers and our educators is very, very powerful. And I think that's really what sets a GEM student apart, because we train them to be world ready, on all aspects. And I
Yeah.
think that's really, really important.
So, obviously, you've got a lot of schools. You have a lot of options there, which is great because, but families do often worry that, well, how do you control that consistency across the multiple schools that you have, ensuring quality and still allowing each school to have its own identity?
Yeah, great question. Ever since my grandfather started the first school, and then my father, initiated, the ecosystem, the business, and how it started. Education was paramount, no matter what type of school that we built. So, we would never compromise on the quality of education and that teacher that's supposed to be teaching in front of that child, and that is paramount across all our curricula and delivery models. The only thing that changes is facility, perspectives. Parents want, just in some instances, you know, um, especially at the kind of, let's say, low rent Indian curriculum schools, they want just good quality education because they want their children to have a better life than they did. At the
Hmm.
other extreme, it's about facilities, and the additional services that one would offer outside of just the core education. So it's really about being able to support that ecosystem of quality education for every child, no matter where they are, and that's really important. But the other benefit of being part of a network is, one is stability, that one can create, but also the resources that we bring to the table. We have partnerships with multiple partners in the region, whether it may be in things like financial literacy, or healthcare, or whatever else maybe, which we can bring to a network system. Which, if you're part of one individual school, it's very, very difficult. So I think as a network, we have the ability to create opportunity and access, while the schools have this kind of, within their own brand, they have their golden thread, but behind the scenes we have this opportunity and access that we can create for across all the schools. So I think that's how I would kind of explain our kind of scenario.
Okay, so it's about thinking about the fit for the right type of parent and their children, and you've got something that works for everyone. Really, it's just a question of talking to you and seeing which school is perfect for them.
Correct,
And
exactly right.
okay, so we move on to sort of how does GEMS define student success beyond grades and university placements? Because obviously, Dubai's and the UAE is known for education up to a certain level, and it's preparing them for universities around the world. So, what's your thoughts on that?
I think, going back to your point that just mentioned earlier, I think every child is different nowadays. I don't think it's. I think things have changed quite considerably. Everyone learns differently, perspectives change, and especially in such a multicultural place such as UAE, and it's growing, and the way it's growing, you have people from so many different cultures. There could be language differences, from a learning perspective. Their cognitive abilities can be quite different, especially when you come from different cultures in one place, right? So I think that's where we are quite unique. We have the ability to have the baseline, but we also have the ability to create those personalized learning journeys for those kids, because each one is quite unique. So we have the ability to make sure the kids are world ready if they want to go to university. we also want them to be powerful enough and strong enough that, listen, if they want to go into entrepreneurship and do their own thing, we want them to have the confidence to do that. And I think that's really, really important. Confidence is really, really important in especially in this world where social media is such a prevalent force in a young child's life. They can learn much faster. They have access to information which, even when I was in school, I probably would not have access to in any way or form. They're more connected than ever before. So how do you adapt to those kind of mindsets in our education system? And that's what we have tried relentlessly to build upon over 6 decades. Things are changing, so we also have to adapt. We know that every child might not want to go to university. Some of them will want to go to work. Some of them might want to go to like an apprenticeship kind of roles. So we want to be able to create those students who have the ability to do and be confident enough to do whatever they believe is right for them. But nowadays, universities also, getting good grades is, if you want to go to good university, you have to get good grades because that's the only way you're going to get into the filter system. Then after that, then what they're doing is seeing what else have you done. Like I saw a research and a couple of months ago, maybe a year ago actually. I think only the weightage for results is about 25 or 30%. Rest of the stuff is, hey, do you do a sport to a high level? Have you tried a business and failed? Have you done community service? Have you supported a charity on a consistent basis? And not just for CV building, but really passionate about something along those lines. And those are kind of the holistic aspects is becoming more and more important because everyone's becoming smart, weirdly. So everyone's getting A's everywhere from all around the world, and you're competing against thousands of kids who want to go to these top universities. But what sets you apart? And I think universities are looking for those kids with that special, that uniqueness outside of just getting A's. And I think that's where it's like getting A's is good and stuff 100%. That'll get you through the first door, but then what's going to get you that second door and the third door so you can get that place? So again, it's all about giving that opportunity and access to these kids to be able to be the best of themselves, really.
So you would see in education, obviously, a child may have certain qualities as they grow, and I assume obviously your system allows people to be identified and say, well, we've noticed your child's got this particular skill. Would they benefit from this extra service that you offer, that nurturing aspect that you may have? Is that something sort of you promote and you have your teachers trained on as well to spot sort of certain traits in children?
100%, and that's what I was mentioning earlier. Those unique, individual, personalized plans. I mean, one thing is everyone has a learning persona in some way or form. You learn differently from the way I learn, and so on and so forth. So these teachers are trained to understand what is that uniqueness of a child. Okay, he learns maths this way, and as he gets older, he's got a real passion for, say, fencing, for example, right? So real passion for, okay, he's got this little bit of an edge. Let's give him a go. Let's and then and as much as possible, we try and make sure that we have the facility and the ecosystems to be able to deliver that sport of choice or passion for that child. We are very keen on entrepreneurs in our system. My father being an entrepreneur, my grandfather being an entrepreneur, started the first school. That is kind of in those skill sets everyone should have. So we do the Global Innovation Challenge where we have over 10,000 applications within just our own system. These are kids in our schools who just ideas, and it's not about whether being funded or anything, but it's about that thought process of going through those ideas, testing it out, trying it, getting access to incubation partners that we have access to as GEMS, bringing that to the forefront, getting kids, having that conversation with those kind of people and giving those kind of, let's say, access to learnings or information or failures that other people have done. But that's very powerful. Not a lot of people can do that. And I think that's where kind of that, let's say, that nuance comes in, that where for our GEM students, where we can build into our ecosystem. And again, that network effect. It's kind of finding that uniqueness of that child, and then seeing, okay, how can we put all the strength into these kind of things in our system, and that's where kind of our network effect really helps.
Right. Okay. Is there a website people can see in terms of incubators and other companies that can sort of come to you and say, well, what do you offer? What ideas have you got that we could help grow that?
We have a Global Innovation Challenge website where we have partnered with Plug and Play. It's an incubator from the West, and then they picked the top 10 cohort, and they've just done the first year of cohort session right now, and then at the end of it, they have the chance of being funded by a plug and play. Separately, we've also created a mini within Gems, a mini joint venture on I would say an angel fund. I would say that for our students and our community within Gems. And it's with the partner with Owl Ventures from San Francisco. They're a AAA VC fund. It's very specific on education.
Hmm.
So because of these partnerships, we can actually deploy those kind of initiatives for these kids, and look at investing in, at the angel stage for these ideas and so on and so forth. But Global Innovation Challenge would have access to all these kind of details where we would add. But then individually at the school level, when you go through the school websites, each school has their own USPs and their kind of specifics, which will have all the details of all the extensions outside of just curriculum that we have. Whether it's sport, whether it's engagement with entrepreneurs, whether it's community service, it has that whole ecosystem within each of the websites, school websites that we would have.
That sounds amazing. It really does. So we come on to AI now, and there's a lot of noise around AI in education. People may be worried: is it going to support teachers, or is it going to replace them? What's your thoughts on AI in education currently?
Yeah, great question. I think AI is it's a tough one because you cannot live without it at the moment. The speed at which it's growing, it has to be part and parcel of your system, but you have to put the safeguards in so that it is not, let's say, utilized in the wrong way. I think that's something as we as educators got to figure out what is the right policy of usage of AI. But my perspective is that AI has right now the lowest hanging fruit in our system is as a productivity tool. Teachers work so hard in creating lesson plans and after hours and so on and so forth that if I can alleviate 20% of their time in that so that they can focus more on teaching and alleviate that administrative burden, that's a big win
Hmm.
for our system. With 10,000 teachers and the amount of additional education time that I can create, that'll be pretty powerful. So that's a low hanging fruit. I think the longer term, medium to longer term is that AI, because of the shortage of teachers globally, there's a shortage of something like 30 million teachers by 2032 in the primary sector.
Wow. Okay.
And that's pretty phenomenal. And the only way to let's say bridge that gap is through AI. In all honesty, how can AI be supportive in not just in our system? What about rural areas in Africa or India? How do you get teachers in place like that? But AI can get there very quickly, if you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
So you probably have access to Wi-Fi in most places before someone can actually physically go build a school there. So I think that's where the benefit of AI will come in the medium to longer term, where AI can actually support the supplementary teaching within the
Hmm.
system. I don't think it could ever take away a teacher. It can never do that, actually, in all honesty, because I think teachers have so much more to give outside of just teaching. That social and emotional aspect that children need, the mentorship. Parents, entrust their children with in our school for
Yeah.
60% of the year. And that's a long time. Those teachers in front of them have a lot. It's not just about teaching. They need to support their emotional aspect, their well-being, build confidence with them. They do so much more than
Hmm.
just teaching, and that's sometimes people forget that. And you can never remove that with AI. And but AI can be an enabler for those teachers to be even better and support them to take them to another level to deliver great education.
No, I agree. And what about the students? What AI technology and information are you passing on to them to help them be confident with AI moving forward? And students need to be aware of it and learn and understand AI. Is that part of what you're teaching as well? The importance of AI and how you incorporate that into the education system for the students?
Yeah, so we will have it through our, let's say, computer science subjects and so on and so on. They will see and start feeling nuggets of machine learning and AI and what it means to be in the system. Obviously, a lot of our, let's say, contractors or suppliers in our system where we have ed tech relationships and so on, they will be implementing AI in some way or form. They will have a touch and feel of it. One of our new initiatives that we've just opened up a school called GEM School of Research and Innovation, and one of the perspectives of that was that the learnings of AI and machine learning should be ingrained into the curriculum. So it shouldn't be an add-on, but it's like perspectives should be taught to those kids. and they can understand it now at that level. But it's not so much about using AI, but it's about understanding what it actually means to be part of that ecosystem. So our
Yeah.
curriculum is built from the ground up. So they will be, even if they're doing math or science or whatever else it is, there'll be a perspective of machine learning and AI and logic that'll be spoken about within the curriculum, so that those nuggets of information will start falling into their kind of learning system for a child. Things like GPT, Gemini, we obviously have to be careful on how it is utilized. Actually, I don't think you can use it under 13 anyway in this region.
Mm.
So that comes in at a later stage. So they got to be able to use it wisely, and that's where you need to teach children aspects of, say things like media literacy, what is real and what isn't, be able to
Yeah.
question what is AI, right? And that is those are the kind of, let's say, the foundations before starting using it, to be able to, those children need to learn before they get into kind of really using a GPT or Gemini and so on and so forth. So that's how we've kind of managed it, and how we are kind of structuring it at the moment, because I don't, obviously using it too young, you don't use your brain, but you
Mm.
also need to know the foundation elements of what the framework is on how to use AI, so that you don't use it, you don't abuse it either. So there's a balance, and that's an everyday. It's iterative. You have to constantly change, because AI is changing. Things are moving so fast. By in a week's time, there'll be something new happening, and so you got to be kind of ahead of the game. And we have innovation heads in all our schools to be able to start discussing, and excellence fellows in our schools to be able to start discussing this on a daily basis, and see what is right, what is wrong, and create safeguards around it.
It's a great thing to know that the children will have maybe a better understanding than most adults might have currently on how the world's changing.
100%. They're already ahead, and they probably use it more than teachers this up
Yeah.
behind the scenes, I'm sure. But that's exactly why we have to educate ourselves. We have to let teachers also play with, open AI, GPT, and let them also, take their own initiative and play with it and understand it,
Mm.
because they'll also, they need to be ahead of the game, ahead of the kids, right? Otherwise, the kids will be starting to tell us. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting situation to be in.
So a question I have is, when children and family comes to Dubai for the first time and starts enrolling in your schools, what's the sort of transition and well-being aspects that you offer to assist them? Because it's quite a move sometimes culturally even, and a big move to a new country. Some children, some parents have never maybe moved to a new country. It can be quite daunting. So just wondering how GEM supports that transition and that sort of process.
Yeah, so and I totally appreciate parents, nervousness when they come to a new country, especially in this region, Middle East. Always gets convoluted with the wrong kind of perspective, and once they come here, they're very, very happy. Weather's great, and and all the benefits of it. And but when they do come to school, it is probably a little bit more nerve wracking, because the schools here are much bigger than schools in the UK. So, central London schools probably range between, I don't know, 300, and then at the top end, probably 1,000, like a St.
Mm.
Paul's and stuff. Here they're much bigger. So they will be touching 2,000 plus kids. So that in itself is quite overwhelming for a lot of kids. But I think what we do is we have parent relation executives in all our schools, and their job is, once the parent does pick a school and they're in that process, their job is to kind of handhold them through that whole ecosystem. And what we do in our schools, we have actually a process for the first 100 days for every new student, because we need to make sure that they're buddied up the right way, make sure the teachers understand that they are coming for a new world. They do not know how things move. It might be a little bit scary in some instances. Kids need to make friends, right? When they make friends is when they're most happiest.
Yeah.
I think understand, especially if you're coming new as a kid into a classroom with already, like, I don't know, 30 kids, or 25 kids, and you can get a bit overwhelmed. So it's about the teamwork all together, the teacher with the relevant section head, with the principal, with these new students, to make sure that they also actually build their friendships. But also the parents to build their friendships too. 'Cause I think it's
Mm.
important that parents also connect with other parents like-mindedness, so that they can also feel comfortable settling in, and so on and so forth. So that is really, really important, I think, within our system. And this 100-day plan is for all new students in our system.
I think that's the great transition to have, and it makes a much happier student life and parent life, and a much better connection between parents and students actually. So that can work really, really well.
Yeah, and we want to make sure the students are happy. If they're happy, parents feel a bit calmer. They say get
Hmm.
nervous, and then they, if they're not happy, they bring it back home. So it's really important for the student to just feel comfortable ultimately, and especially when you have things like language barriers and stuff, which is highly possible. We have to just make sure that we have this, let's say English language support, if that is the case, whatever else it may be for that parent or that community, to be able to support them, get them up the learning ladder and the literacy ladder as fast as possible, so they feel comfortable speaking to other kids and so on and so forth. Then the parents are happy. Then it's all a bit of a domino effect once you get it right. And I think that's really what we're trying to make
Yeah.
sure that parents and kids, when they come to our system, are really happy with.
And for people that join, children that are joining sort of midterm, do you offer that service? And is there sort of special support to sort of get them up to speed in that
Yeah,
in that
it's
scenario?
exactly the same service. It goes across any new child coming into our system, whether it be September, whether it be January. We have a lot of January intake as well. A lot of people moving mid-year, so we will support them through that whole process. Very simply.
Okay, so no one should be scared that, oh, I've missed the term, I should wait till next year. Really, they should just start and talk to you straight away.
100%. I think having those conversations earlier is better.
Hmm.
Then you can plan. Then you can also support them in their kind of, even in some instances, relocation, saying, suggest them people they can go to if they're looking for properties or whatever else outside of this. So because if we can start early, we can actually connect them to the right people. So they're taken care of on the, let's say, the other admin side. Then we can handle all the onboarding for the schools and so on and so forth.
No, that sounds great. This is exactly what we do as a property company as well, which we haven't even spoken about, but that's what we do. We help find the right properties for people from the UK to the UAE, and our aspect is you've got to find your school first. You've got to know which area, how far you're prepared to travel to get to the school of your choice, and then we work on budgets, and then we work on finding the right property because the most important thing is the school or the
Yep.
workplace first, and then we've got to sort of build around that and the requirements, rather than just pushing whatever is currently new or trending. It's more about understanding. It is the biggest purchase of their lives, and education is the biggest sort of thought for your children, really. So I think it works hand in hand. We've got to make sure that we do the right thing for our
And on
clients.
that And Darbesh, on that point, you made an interesting point on picking the school. Things have changed in Dubai. What it was before. Before, obviously, travel time and stuff was not a problem. You could actually get from one side of Dubai to the other in like 30 minutes, no issue. But nowadays, things are changing. So you are having a much more, the rush hour concept is definitely started here. And things are being boroughfied. So, like what you would see in the UK, Notting Hill, Ealing, and so on and so forth. So it is important that people do pick their schools and work around that, because it's not the same as it was before. Travel perspectives and so on and so forth are changing over here. So it's good
Yeah.
to get ahead of the game on that.
No, exactly. I think they are trying to improve things, but it's always going to be a catch up because there's so many people moving there that it is important to have the travel aspect put into first before you buy your property, and that's what we advise anyway. And brings us on to really about you and your sort of greatest influence as a leader, and more about you, really.
So myself, listen, I've been blessed. I'm very grateful for the life I've had. I don't think I can never change it. I've got a great family. I've been very supported. We want to grow gems further and further. There's so much more opportunity out there, especially regionally. Um, I'm also new into my role here, weirdly, in a year and a half. I was in the business before, but I actually went to UK to look after our ecosystem there. We have 20 schools in the UK as well. Um, but it taught me a lot. I've grown by learning. I've made a lot of mistakes, and I've trying not to make them again, as usual. Yeah, I've grown by learning. I was very blessed to be in London. Actually, UK taught me a lot. It taught me a
Mm.
different perspective of things, and I think that's one of the reasons that I brought myself back, because I've been able to bring those perspectives to our own business, and I've been very lucky to do that. So I think learning from other people, I think that's been a number one benefit for me, and seeing different perspectives of businesses, other businesses outside of our own, from a UK standpoint, was very, very interesting. So that gave me a lot of kind of, let's say, my own confidence, especially when coming back into the family business.
And is GEMS, so you've got a presence in the UAE, as we know, in Dubai and in the UK. Which other sort of areas are you looking at, or do you have a presence in already?
So we have schools that we manage, which is similar to the hotel model. So an investor wants a school, but they want to set up in their community, but we would manage it just like in the hotel concept. So we have managed schools in Saudi, in Egypt. We do have a few in India that we own right now. But our biggest market is definitely Middle East, and UK is a market. It's been a market for us for quite a while. But in 2018, we were lucky to partner and acquire a company called Bellevue, and we have a great management team there that's growing our assets in UK as well. And But Middle East is kind of our main focus at the moment, and trying to branch out into mainly the regional countries, very simply.
And when you look back, I mean, when parents are looking back 15 years from now, what do you think they'll say about GEM schools?
Yeah, great question. See, I hope that parents, when they look back, I hope that they see that GEMS education um, prepared those kids to be world ready, and they never shied away from any opportunity or challenge. And I think the challenge part is the most important thing, and I hope that we've made our kids resilient to take on anything, because they are going to go into a world which has probably got much more, which needs much more adaptability, if I put it
Mm.
that way, and they've got to learn to deal with ambiguity. I think that's the kind of the toughest thing, and I hope that all our children have the ability to take that on. So I think world ready is a very is what I hope that we've given all our students to be successful in their own right.
That sounds right. I mean, there's a lot of noise in the world, and it's getting hard to focus, really. So, teaching children at the early age and avoiding that anxiety. So, thank you for that. As
Thank you.
well. So, brings us down to there's a special initiative you have, which we haven't spoken about. It's the Global Teacher Prize. Can you tell us a bit about that? Because that's quite an interesting concept you've come up with, and it's been running for many years.
Yeah, yeah. The Global Teacher Prize was kind of it was ideated by my father, where he wanted to kind of celebritize teachers. His thought process was, we see so many celebrities in all these papers and so on and so forth, and magazines and stuff, but we don't ever see a teacher. Most people can point out to, oh, I had the favorite teacher. They literally, have a big part in every child's life in some way or form, but we
Yeah.
never celebrate them. And think about it like an unsung heroes, and they work 15 hours a day, lesson planning, deal with multiple uh, personalities in a classroom, 20 to
Mm.
25 kids. Each one is quite individual, each one different perspectives, trying to manage that. So they do so much. And he said, how do we make it, how do we celebrate those teachers? And that's how the $1 million prize started 10 years ago. And we had our 10th winner just now in February at the World Government Summit. And we've been blessed to be able to carry on this prize via the Varkey Foundation, and the aim of bringing teachers at the forefront, very simply, so that people know what the importance of teaching is to the society. Whether private schools or government schools, they all need teachers. They all education such a vast industry, that primary and secondary education is so important in this day and age, so that kids do have the ability, even just the basic literacy and numeracy levels, to be able to take on, let's say, new specializations or whatever else it may be. And we forget sometimes the importance of teachers. Human capital is the future. Look how Dubai is doing. They
Mm.
have done an amazing job in bringing human capital here, and soon innovation will be growing out of this region rather than just the west or the east, and so on and so forth. And that's so important.
One other question I had actually is about universities. Is there any plans for universities to start and develop there as well, so the education continues? rather than people then going to look for universities in other locations around the world?
Yeah, so I think this region is actually primed for a tertiary sector.
Hmm.
They already have a lot of great universities here, doing very, very well. Weirdly, we have about 7,000 graduates every year, and about 30%, I think it was last time I checked, 30% stay locally. I think I think it's access, affordability. I think it's and the quality of delivery that's being set up here is just as good as in home country. So I think it is actually a growing ecosystem here for sure. I'm not sure how many numbers of universities have set up at the moment, to be totally honest with you, but if 30% of our 7,000 are staying around, there must be quite a few, and it'll keep growing. Because I also know that student housing has become a big area.
Yeah.
So if that's growing, and with the close proximity to Asia, proximity to this region, and if you have some great satellite university hubs here, and I think it'll do very, very well, and I think it will grow, continuously grow.
Thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure to speak to you. And hopefully we can do more of these podcasts, because I'm sure there's a lot still to learn. And I hopefully parents have found a lot of information from what you've given today helpful to them. So thank you again for your time.
Brilliant.
And
Thank you
thanks
so
for being part
much.
of the podcast.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. Ever grateful.
Thank you for listening to Your Pathway to the Emirates podcast. We believe that by staying connected with our podcast and social media channels, you will gain valuable knowledge and stay abreast of the latest developments that may be of interest to you, whether you are an investor, enthusiast, or professional in the industry. Do drop us an email on info@elevation88.com if you wish us to cover any particular topics. So please follow, subscribe, and stay tuned for our upcoming episodes and updates as we continue to bring you engaging and informative content.